both sides of the hiring process are becoming increasingly automated.
Yeah, I'm conflicted. I don't think the whole recruitment process can be done by machines.
When you put a candidate up against, in this example, Claude, to beat it, what does that mean by beat it? Beat it at what? I don't see how that can be pitted against AI.
At the rate of progress that these AIs are getting better, how long can they expect you to keep beating Claude?
They are allowing creators who regularly use AI tools to toggle on the AI creator tag within Instagram, and it'll add a label to their profile or to their content.
I think it's starting to feel completely unhinged.
Stop with the mistrust of AI, because guess what? We're investing a hell of a lot in AI.
Hello and welcome to episode 112 of Disconnected. I'm your host, Jag Sharma, joined by my co-hosts Jen Campbell in Hong Kong, Jason Kapadia in Dubai, and Matt Webster in Rio de Janeiro. And together, we'll be delving into the world of AI, tech, and social media and how it's impacting society and culture. Coming up, recruitment has always been slightly painful, but now it seems to be entering a new dystopian phase. AI interviews, AI screen CVs, AI-generated applications, and now companies asking candidates to beat Claude just to prove they're worth speaking to. So I'll be asking, has hiring become completely unhinged? Jen brings us two meta stories that feel very connected. Instagram introducing AI creator labels, while Meta's daily active users have declined for the first time ever. And Matt, on another meta story, takes us on Meta's massive AI spending plans, with investors getting nervous as Zuckerberg pours billions into AI. All of this, as well as other trending topics. Right then, guys, let's get straight into it. And you know what? I'll kick us off this week. I want to talk about recruitment because honestly, I think it's starting to feel completely unhinged. And I don't mean recruitment has become mildly annoying. No, recruitment has always been mildly annoying. I mean, we're now entering this strange new world where both sides of the hiring process are becoming increasingly automated, increasingly performative, and somehow less human for everyone involved. Candidates are using AI to write CVs, cover letters, applications, and sometimes apply for hundreds or even thousands of jobs while they sleep. Companies are responding by using AI to screen CVs, conduct interviews, score candidates, and filter people out before a human ever sees them. So, the candidate uses AI to get past the company's AI. The company uses AI to filter out the candidate's AI. And somewhere in the middle, the actual human being has disappeared. And then I saw a job post this week that really crystallized the whole thing for me. The company behind IM8, Prenetics, was hiring for a senior social media role and included something called a Beat Claude challenge. Shortlisted candidates complete an assignment and their work is scored against a baseline generated by Claude. And the line that really got me in the job ad was, to advance, your thinking needs to be better than what the best AI produces. Ties don't advance. Now, on one level, I understand what they're trying to do. They want AI native candidates. They want people who can use AI well. They want sharper thinking than a generic machine output. Fine. But I also think there's something quite dystopian about making humans prove they are better than AI in order to be considered for a human job. Because that feels like the wrong framing entirely. AI should be a tool that helps people work better, faster, smarter. It should expand human capability. But here it becomes the opponent, the benchmark, the thing you have to defeat. And I think that says something about where work culture is heading. We're no longer just asking, can this person do the job? We're asking, can this person outperform the machine baseline? And that's a very different psychological contract, because once AI becomes the default benchmark, human value starts to be measured against speed, volume, and machine-like output. But the best people often don't win because they produce the most generic answer fastest. They win because they understand context. They read the room. They make judgment calls. They know when not to do something. They bring taste, instinct, empathy, originality, and a lived experience. And those things are really hard to measure in an automated hiring funnel. That's the danger. Recruitment is becoming this weird arms race. AI written applications, AI filtered CVs, AI interviews, AI assignments, AI benchmarks, and everyone is trying to optimize for the system instead of actually understanding each other. Which is mad, because hiring is one of the most human things a company does. You're not just buying output, you're choosing judgment. You're choosing culture fit. You're choosing trust. You are choosing someone you may need to rely on when things get messy, when things get ambiguous, when things get political, when things get emotional, or when things are urgent. And that cannot be fully captured by asking whether someone can beat Claude. So I guess, gang, my opening question to this is, has recruitment become a race between machines with humans stuck in the middle? And if so, how do we bring some actual humanity back into hiring? Keen for your thoughts.
I am really conflicted on this because I have a real love-hate relationship with the way recruitment works anyway. Let me start with the things that I think are positive about this sort of approach. So I've done a lot of hiring at my time, and there's been times where I've got down to like 2 or 3 candidates where I'm like, actually, I like all of them. And I think they've all got the skills to do certain things. So in the example you gave for social media manager, or whatever it was, the director, to have to beat Claude, what I'd actually look for, well, one, who's judging? What's the judgment criteria? But if it's a case of, a lot of the time you have to assume that people tell you the work they've done is actually the work they've done. And I am a big fan of getting people to do tests in jobs that require it. So for example, I hired a lot of copywriters, and to get them to actually do some writing in person while you're there is useful, because how do you know they're not just passing off someone else's work? But if they're smart, they will use Claude, or they'll use an AI tool of some sort to answer the question, and then they will take what it gives them and they will better it. That's one way of looking at it, right? So actually, is the test that they're then going to look at the computer you were working on, say you're in person and you're having to do it on one of their computers, to see what your thought process was? Is it that someone's used AI to create something to see what it's like, and then they start from scratch? Like, there's quite a big, seeing how people operate in that test. I don't think it's as simple as, can you just beat what comes out of the AI tool? I actually think it's a critical thinking question. And it'd be a good way of judging how people think. So there's part of it that I think is quite a good idea, and something I probably would adopt. But equally, there have been times with people on paper who look amazing and they tick all the job descriptions and they've gone through the filters, they've come through and they've walked in the room, and the minute they've walked in the room, I've gone, absolutely not. That person's not for this job. So I think it needs to be a mix of the two. I think if you're hiring for a mass role where you get an awful lot of CVs, there is some screening that can be done to take people out. For example, in Hong Kong, it might be the same in other places, but if you put a job ad up, about 90% of the applications will be coming from India, even if you write. must be in Hong Kong for this job. So screening that out so you don't get all those applications, I'm all for an AI tool to do that for me. If it's a few key skills that people need to have, then okay, cool, screen them out for me. But ultimately, you know when you meet someone whether you can work for them and whether they're right for the culture. And then once you get down to having a couple of candidates who you really do think are great, I do think giving them a test of some sorts is a good idea. And so why not make it a beat the AI? And like I say, being able to kind of look at what was their thinking process, what prompts did they use? If you can do it and you can see all that stuff, I think that is super interesting. And you'll soon learn whether they are, if AI is part of the job, if they're good at prompting and they are efficient and they kind of understand how it works. I think soon enough, you're going to have to test those skills somehow because everyone's going to be at it. So I'm conflicted. I don't think the whole recruitment process can be done by machines, but I do think there are some things that it's very useful for. And for me, it'll always come down to once you meet the person, are they the right fit for the culture and for you and for working with you in that role? So yeah, a bit of a hybrid, I guess.
Yeah, for me, it's like you said, Jen, I'd use AI tools to screen things to help me out. I love using AI as a tool. Who doesn't? And in 2026, it's you should be doing that because they are tools that help us out in work and day-to-day life. But when you put a candidate up against, in this example, Claude, to beat it, what does that mean by beat it? Beat it at what? I mean, putting a spreadsheet together, you're probably going to lose. Or is it, if you look at EQ, if you look at emotional intelligence, I know that if we've got ChatGPT, it's quite sycophantic at the moment in its current version. If a client said to a social media manager, hey, this is a great proposal. Yeah, the budget's been halved though, but we still want the same deliverables, yeah? So a really bad social media manager would roll over and say, yeah, okay. A good one would use their emotional intelligence to be assertive without pissing off the client. ChatGPT would roll over as well. So emotional intelligence, I don't see how that can be pitted against AI. So what do you mean by beat it? Beat it at what? I don't know if that was included in the recruitment send out. But just as an aside, I don't know if you guys read yesterday, Richard Dawkins put out a paper where he has been seduced by Claude, and he believes that Claude is a creature with consciousness. So I think if Richard Dawkins was going to apply for this job, he would lose. He would not get the job because he thinks that Claude is a real thing, in quote, creature with consciousness. He's experiencing an AI delusion, which has been a meme already across the internet, obviously based on his famous book, The God Delusion. So depends on the person, depends on what beat Claude means. So I'm intrigued.
Yeah, that's such a good point. I mean, like when you actually look at all of these AIs, they're trained on scraping the data of the whole of humanity's knowledge, right? That's on the internet. And so even though the data set is huge, right, the output is statistically average on what it's been trained on, right? So it's likely to produce average output. So with this specific job, it was saying, that they need you to beat Claude. And I just wonder, at the rate of progress that these AIs are getting better, how long can they expect you to keep beating Claude? They want someone with creativity and taste, right? That can take whatever Claude's output is and make it better. But as these LLMs keep on training on even that better content, I wonder how long it's going to be until, they can't realistically expect you to beat the AIs. Or is it something taste will always be something that the humans have over the AIs?
On the ambiguity of the beat Claude task in the job spec, for me, the framing is wrong. Humans can be assessed on how they use AI, but not whether they can defeat it. Use it as an understandable signal of the candidate's AI literacy. If it needs to be a test, perhaps a better test would be, hey, here's an AI output, improve it, challenge it, and then explain your judgment. That's the direction where I would say that it would be acceptable when testing someone for a social media leadership position. And I think the broader point here with regards to AI in recruitment is that I don't have a problem with AI in recruitment. I think the problem is when recruitment starts treating humans like inefficient machines. To build on Matt's point, AI should be the calculator, not the examiner. And think of it this way, guys. If your hiring process makes people prove that they're better than Claude, then companies shouldn't be surprised when their candidates start behaving like prompt engineers rather than people.
I agree. I think the problem is for a lot of jobs, that is what's going to start happening. And people are going to, a huge part of their job is going to be prompt engineering followed by fixing up what the output is or improving the output that comes out. I think it's a reality that everybody's job is soon going to have an element of prompt engineering within it. So that's a tricky one for me.
But on the broader topic of using AI through the recruitment process, where do you guys stand on that? Where do you actually think AI should sit in recruitment? Should it be in the interview stage? Should it be hands-on in assessing human capability? Should it be more useful for, summarizing, scheduling, admin? Where do you guys see AI being best used in recruitment?
So I got interviewed recently in two ways. One was a cold approach via WhatsApp, where a person introduced themselves on WhatsApp, started talking about their company, and started discussing a certain role that I might be a good fit for after looking at my profile on LinkedIn, which I responded to and thought, okay, well, this is interesting. I'll keep chatting to this person. But it soon became quite obvious that it wasn't a person, just because of the language that was being used and the sentence structure. And I just stopped communicating. I wish I'd have said, in hindsight, I think I'm talking to an AI or a chatbot, so I'm out. But I just ghosted and left. Shame on me. Hate ghosting. So that was the first one, but it left me feeling like shite. Then the second one was an AI interview where I got interviewed by AI, and I knew that was the case. And again, I was speaking to my phone, answering. It was all verbal answers and like an interview that you'd have in the old days with a person. I remember talking to this AI interviewing me as I was making a cup of tea. And again, it just, even though I knew the situation I was in, it wasn't like I'd been tricked, just didn't really feel great and just gave me a sensation and a feeling that, you know what, I don't really care if I get this job at all because this is just not fun. And if this is the first window into this company, I'm not really bothered. That might be because of my generational approach to AI, maybe younger, maybe Gen Z will be hopping up and down whilst making that cup of tea. Maybe Gen Alpha will be like, why would I be interviewed by a human? But for me, my personal experience being interviewed, it's not been great. It's not been nice. So I would prefer them to be used as tools by humans who then go and speak to humans and hire the humans.
The message becomes, your time is less valuable than ours. That's what I feel that you went through there, Matt. I don't know if that's how you felt.
That's exactly right. Nail on the head. Yes.
Yeah, and we don't have long until we'll have an agent acting on our behalf when you're applying for jobs, where it will be liaising with the hiring company's AI for you and doing that whole conversation on your behalf. I think it's all going to be about, just filtering down the candidates that it thinks that, that would be beneficial for the company, and then getting your foot in the door and doing the real human face-to-face will be where, the deal is sealed. I think still, I don't think that's going to go away. But yeah, it's going to be really, weird. I mean, it's not, the agents won't just be, taking care of your job applications and all that. It'll be handling so many other things. It will know so much about you and what you can do. But in a world where the AIs are so much kind of overall smarter than us, I wonder how they would be kind of able to judge how good our judgment is, if that makes sense, which is kind of what we were alluding to a couple of episodes ago about how important that is as a differentiator from what humans can offer compared to just the AIs. What do you reckon, Jen?
I'd love it if I had a little agent that could go and get me a job. Wouldn't that be wonderful? Just tell them this is my dream job and let it tick away and tick away and tick away until it got the job for me. And by that, I mean ice cream taster at Haagen-Dazs. That'd be wonderful. But yeah, I think that will be the way it goes. At the moment, in the current day and age, where do I think it sits? I think it is good for screening. Although I will say that is also controversial because I have another issue that a lot of the time for jobs in the field that I do, which is marketing, they have a requirement for having a degree in marketing. And I've spoken to a friend before who works at a large bank in Hong Kong who has basically said, regardless of my 18 plus years of experience, I wouldn't get a job in their marketing department because I have a degree in neuroscience and not in marketing. So those 3 years I was at university versus the 18 years I've done my job, I wouldn't get through their hiring process because I'd be screened out at the first stage. So even that is maybe I'm not right for the job, but in my view, in some ways that is flawed. But I do think if you've got if there's things like, are you in the country and you've got a job that you can't give visas for, screen those out, like stop wasting everybody's time having to go through all those applications. But I think once it comes down to actually assessing a candidate, I think you've got to meet them. There's no way you can hire people without going through the process of meeting them, in my opinion.
Do you think that AIs will soon be able to tell, they probably already can, but if someone's lying or not? Because, you can put whatever down on your CV and I've done this and I've done that. But when it asks you the question, okay, tell me a time that you solved XY problem, and if you're just blagging it or not, if it can tell if you're lying, that'll be something like a really good filter, I guess. Do you reckon they're going to come up with that soon?
Depends if it's us, like person directly, or if it's the agent acting on the person's behalf. Because my agent better be acting in my best interests. Don't be telling. You won't get much out of him on a Monday morning or Friday.
Doesn't work after 1 p.m.
So as long as the agent is focusing on the positives, then it'll just be AI lying to AI, lying to AI, lying to AI. It'll just be what humans have been doing in recruitment, but now we've outsourced it to AI.
I feel like there's this world where AI is just talking to each other and lying to each other and trying to outdo each other. And we're just over in the real world, and we'll probably just end up getting on with our real world stuff and forget about all those AIs and what they're doing. And every now and again you get a little notification. Ding! Haagen-Dazs want to see you next week. Oh, wicked.
Jag's getting a notification saying, you've been fired again.
How many jobs have I got?
All right, gang. I think we'll move on from there. And do you know what? Let's move on to essentially the main event for the rest of the pod. It's all meta. Jen, why don't you kick us off?
I will. I feel like it's been a long time since we've had a little focus on meta, so it's time. And this all started because I saw a very interesting article this week about how Instagram have launched their AI creator tag. So they are allowing creators who regularly use AI tools to toggle on the AI creator tag within Instagram, and it'll add a label to their profile or to their content that kind of says, I'm an AI creator. And if you click on top of that, it comes up with a thing that says, what does this mean? And it says this person regularly uses AI to create their content. And this caught my attention because I reckon about 2 years ago on this podcast, we had a conversation about should influencers and creators be made to put this was generated with AI in the same way they do when it's a paid advert or, when it's a sponsored post and that sort of stuff. And it's never really come into play. And I feel like this is a step in that direction. They say it's for transparency. I suspect it's also to keep creators on their platform, because if they go down a stance of not supporting AI generated content, they're going to lose out on creators to other platforms. But you can already have AI info labels that you can apply, or you can apply it to your creative. And at the moment, the way they're rolling this out, it is very much optional. It's up to the creator to add that. And I'm yet to understand why anyone would, unless it's something super cool they've created. But it seems a bit strange to me. The other part of this story that then came up that I was reading was that it's an interesting timing, because it's also the first time that daily active user count has dropped quarter on quarter in forever. And so there's also this kind of thing playing in my mind of, are they really now starting to kind of hit saturation point and they've got to find ways to keep people within the platform and look for new ways? What's even more interesting about this daily active user count, and don't anybody panic that Meta are about to go bust. They still have 3.56 billion active users in a quarter. It's dropped by 20 million. So a third of the world's population is still on the platform. We don't need to worry about them too much. But they have launched things like Threads, and, you know, they've launched Meta's AI app, and a few other platforms that were supposed to bring people in. And even having done that, their daily active users is dropping. So I thought that was quite interesting. And, you know, year on year, their revenue has gone up 33%. But as Matt will come on to later, their total costs also went up 35% year on year because they're investing so heavily in AI and they need to get those costs back. So I don't know what you guys think. I wonder if is it a step towards transparency? Is it a step towards creators being allowed, like having to say when they're getting paid or when they're using AI? Is it them playing ball? What do you think?
I think this is a really interesting meta story because it shows the contradiction at the heart of the AI content era. On the one hand, Meta is saying, we need transparency, we need labels, we need users to know when content is AI generated. And that makes sense. But on the other hand, Meta is also actively pushing AI creation tools into the platform and encouraging people to generate more AI content. So it is not just solving a problem, it's helping create the problem and then labeling it. And I think the bigger question is whether the labels are enough. Because once AI content becomes normal, abundant, high quality, a small label may not preserve trust. People may still feel like the whole feed is becoming more synthetic. And that matters. And that matters because Instagram was built on the idea of people sharing their lives, sharing their creativity, sharing their beauty, their humor, their culture. And if all of that becomes flooded with AI-generated content, then what exactly is the emotional value of the platform anymore?
You're so right. And I actually was thinking just this morning when I was thinking about it, are we going to get to the point where people are actually adding tags that say not created using AI? Like, are we going to get to the point where the needle moves that way and actually the content that's not made with AI becomes the spectacle rather than the AI content? God, I hope so, because then at least it means we're still going to have some original content out there somewhere.
I definitely think we will get to that point. And an interesting switch on this is recently I led on a influencer campaign for a client, and I was approaching the creators off the back of this brief. These are young creators, young talented creators, and two of them who were the significant accounts of this campaign that were going to really drive this campaign. Two of these creators came back and said, we're not going to work with you. We're not going to work with this brand on this occasion because we can see that this brand uses AI in some of its content. And this was quite staggering. I wasn't expecting that. Neither was the client. So this is creators telling a brand, I'm not going to collaborate with you because you create AI content. That tells you what a lot of humans are probably thinking. And I'm not talking just about my generation here. These were younger people. So I think you've got a real valid point there, Jag, because it looks like Meta's heading towards, I mean, they've always been like this, but it's very obvious that it's a money-making machine, and it doesn't matter if it's a human or a bot, and it doesn't matter what the experience is with regards to a human being on the platform, as long as they can scrape that money from ad impressions, get everybody to be cool with AI so they can keep reinvesting in their mega AI project. So I think we're at a turning point. We've got people out there that don't care, but we've definitely got young, creative, talented people on Instagram who do care and are actively pushing back on AI. So that label that Jen just mentioned, I can expect it. I reckon we're going to see it pretty soon.
Yeah, and I just wonder, is this just the beginning for it to be kind of automatically enforced and auto-detected, I guess, on the content that you see? And then we could probably make a prediction here, but I think that authentic human content creation will still be more valuable, I guess, than the AI generated slop that we see right now. From that point of view, I guess I wonder what happens if you're, say, a photographer and you're trying to put out as much content as everyone else, and then you're using these AI tools to maybe just enhance your photo or whatever, and then that gets pushed live, even though it's a really slight adjustment, is the algorithms detect that as AI content, and then you have these type of trust issues that could come about from there. So yeah, it's gonna be really interesting on that point. And in terms of the user number drop, I did read that this is actually what Meta's explanation was on the earnings call, is that due to the ongoing conflict, Iran basically had their internet cut off, and that's 90 million people. I don't know how many of them actually use Meta's products, but it's probably quite a high percentage. And so if that was added back onto the count, then I think they would still be at least flat or growing.
Do you guys think that AI creator labels actually build trust, or are they just a way for Meta to normalize more AI content?
For me, it's normalize. They're doing it to normalize. That's my hunch, definitely. Because they're trying to get people to say, look, it's okay. Some people are creative, but they also use AI tools. That's okay. That's the norm now. Stop with the mistrust of AI. Because guess what? We're investing a hell of a lot in AI. But yeah, everybody, AI is cool. Carry on. They're definitely normalizing it in my point of view.
Yeah. And I also think that they're normalizing it because they're still trying to grow their ads business. And a big part of the future projected growth is AI automated ads, from video ads to whatever ads that they're going to be putting forward. So if they can normalize the content being made by AI, then the ads made by AI will also be kind of a bit more accepted and, have higher CTAs, etc. What do you reckon, Jen?
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously the money behind it. Do I think it builds trust? I think in some ways, I think it's not a bad thing in terms of being able to know, because there are enough times where you see videos of my whole platform is flooded with shark attacks, where I often think, that's probably AI, and it would just be nice to know. So for me, to put it in there is actually better for a user to be able to say, yes, this is real, this is not. So it's not a trust piece, but it is definitely a user experience improvement in my view.
I think Meta is basically saying, we're going to accelerate AI content, but don't worry, we'll put a sticker on it. And you know what? I think let's put a sticker on that topic. And why don't
Very nice.
Why don't we move on to another Meta story? Go on, Matt. Tell us more on, dare I guess it's about AI as well? Meta and AI.
It's the Meta episode, yeah. Saw an article on the BBC earlier this week, which got my attention. And it's Zuckerberg doubling down and getting Meta to increase its AI spend to $145 billion this year. So that's $145 billion on infrastructure, chips, and energy just to keep their AI machine running. And when this was announced, investors, and this is a big part of the story, investors were said to have kind of panicked around the costs of Meta AI skyrocketing, because Meta and Mark Zuckerberg haven't really come back with a clear way of showing that they're going to make that money back. So as a result, shares dropped 7% in Meta after this announcement of this spend. So is this the biggest tech bet in history, or is it a $145 billion bubble that's waiting to burst? Well, if we look at the other major tech companies that are investing heavily in AI, we've got Alphabet, Microsoft, and Amazon. But when they shared their spend with the investors, they have reportedly shown ways that this investment is already paying off. Cut now across back to Meta, and in this piece in the BBC where they're focusing on investors being spooked, these two quotes didn't help things either. So you've got Susan Lee, Meta's chief finance officer, who reportedly said, quote, "In the past years, we have underestimated our compute needs." And then Zuck himself came out and said, I don't think we have a very precise plan for exactly how each product is going to scale or anything like that. So obviously the key points have been highlighted by the journalists at the BBC, but there's a lot of doubt. Does that doubt come from the metaverse and the huge amount of investment that went into that, which ultimately was a flop? And will Meta survive if there's not a return showing up off the back of this investment next year, the year after? So yeah, we've got huge amounts of money. We've got like GDP of most countries being put into this to keep into this AI race that's going on with the major tech companies. And so I just wanted to kind of end with like, where will it end? Who's going to win it? Is this going to pay off for Meta? Musk, your fave, Jason, recently came out and said he's going to cheapen the way that they structure their AIs by sending them all into space. And he's going to do that within 36 months. So Musk's got a plan to reduce the spend on increasing the compute on the AI, but the markets and the BBC and Meta's chief finance officer have doubts about Meta's big gamble. What do you think, guys? Are Meta going to stay in the race? Or is there history of miscalculations with lots of money, Metaverse, going to prove that they're going to fall out of this race and it's just going to be Alphabet, Microsoft and Amazon going forward?
On the one side, Meta's still an incredibly profitable business. It's got scale, advertising power we talked about, users still tons, infrastructure, ambition. But on the other side, it's making this enormous AI bet. And as you rightly said, Matt, investors don't fully understand what's going on with that yet. And what stood out to me is Zuckerberg basically saying he doesn't have a precise plan for what exactly, how this is going to scale, but, he's comfortable with the direction. And that is fascinating because in one sense, that's how big technology shifts work. You invest before everything is obvious. But on the other sense, when you start spending tens or hundreds of billions of dollars and, we'll figure it out, starts to sound a bit terrifying. And I think Meta is trying to avoid missing the next platform shift in the way, that some companies have missed things in the past, like way back when some companies missed, mobile. But the question is whether AI is Meta's next great transformation, or is this another metaverse style spending cycle where the vision is huge, but the route to mass adoption is unclear. But I think if I just summarize my thoughts on it in one sentence, for me, this story that you brought, Matt, it really encapsulates the clearest expression of the direction and where Meta is right now, which is a little bit all over the place.
Yeah, you just have to kind of look at all of the competition in terms of mega market cap companies, what they're doing with their AI infrastructure spends. Meta is kind of on the lower end compared to Amazon, which is spending $200 billion, Microsoft's $190 billion, Google a similar amount, $190 billion. So Meta's is only $125 to $145 maybe billion, which is still huge. But I think this is a trend in the market. And if Zuckerberg doesn't invest big in AI, I think that the stock will languish. I think he will easily make that money back. I think he's probably has already in terms of how much Facebook stock is probably going to go up. And I don't know if you guys saw, there was a wool sneaker maker called Allbirds. They had lost 99% of their value since their IPO in 2021. And they've just said, in the middle of last month, we're going to pivot to AI. right? So they named their company from Allbirds to New Bird AI, and basically they wanted to raise money to buy GPUs, and then the stock went up like 700%, right? So it's insane. So there's such a thirst for AI. Anyone who's adjacent to AI, memory, hard disk space, all of them. So they're growing at like crazy peaks. It looks like just vertical takeoff for so many of these stocks. So I think Zuckerberg's doing the smart thing, investing heavy into AI, and I think it's already paying off for them in terms of the boost that they're getting in terms of higher precision, ad targeting and efficiency and all of those things anyway. But I think Zuckerberg knows that if one of the competition reaches AGI or ASI first, right, it's going to put his company at risk, and he doesn't want to do that. So he has to put his, throw a big amount of chips into the game.
The only certain thing that he said off the back of this investment was that he alluded to potential significant job cuts coming to Meta, because our AI is going to get so good that what 4 people used to do, 1 person will now do. So, I mean, that's just a little bit dark. That seems to be the only outcome of this investment, is just to reduce the amount of people that work at his company and therefore increase the profitability of his company. But that's all he's alluded to so far. But generally, like Jag said, it's like, yeah, let's just see what happens. Don't really know. We haven't done that well before. So, yeah, I just think from looking at all these big tech companies and what they're doing, completely agree with Jag that Meta seem all over the place and have done for the past 2 or 3 years. But I do appreciate the point that it has to keep up with this AI race. Otherwise, what will happen if he doesn't? And as for Allbirds, what the absolute hell? I mean, that's like a hipster trainer company. It reminds me a little bit of, I posted in our group chat the other week that massive announcement of L'Oreal and Nvidia, and you've got the 2 CEOs shaking hands. Skincare and computational chips? I mean, I don't get it. I mean, I'm sure it's a great story, and I'm so far away from those 2 companies to not understand. But, L'Oreal's an ex-client, so it did make me kind of look at that and go, what? I was not expecting that collab. They normally collaborate with, movies and film stars, and here they are. And I'm sure that had a positive effect on L'Oreal's share price as well with Nvidia. So
if anyone would understand skincare and computational chips, it would be Jason Kapadia. This man's skin regime and his understanding of technology. Tell us, Jace. Tell us why Nvidia and L'Oreal met. You would know.
Hang on. I know why this has happened. His agent, he's put into his agent what's his ideal job. And his agent has gone and formed a company specifically so he can get his ideal job. Well done, Jace.
Perfect. You did it.
Oh, gosh. I mean, I don't know. I guess I have no idea about this NVIDIA and L'Oreal meeting up. I'm sure it's about some kind of automated skincare type thing, which is probably a great idea, but it's probably been tried so many times before. Matt, on your point about Elon, right? Obviously, I have to talk about Elon. Just in terms of the data centers getting into space, is because so many of these data centers that they want to put up, they either have issues with planning or issues with power, right? So a lot of people don't want them in their backyard. They say they waste too much water, which is silly anyway. And they don't want their energy bills going up. So the only way to kind of get around that is put them up into space where energy is abundant, the sun, yay. And the other thing is no one's going to tell you no. So yeah, who knows if it's going to really be the future. I think it's obviously got good chances because Elon's working on it, but I don't know. It's going to be interesting for sure.
Have you ever read the books the Hyperion Cantos by Dan Simmons? It's sci-fi. It's kind of cool. It doesn't matter if you haven't, but check it out because it's one of my favorite sci-fi books. In this book, set far in the future, AIs exist as these kind of spherical entities that are in space. And there's 3 types of AIs. There's the ones that are neutral. They don't care if humans exist or not. There's the ones that love humans because they look at them as the little ants that created them, and it's like, oh, the little humans, they made us. Let's keep them happy in the playground. And then there's obviously the ones that are like, why do these ants exist? And these things float in space and pretty much act like gods in space. So Elon, I don't know if he's been reading it, but when I saw the article of him talking about this, there's a little image of this kind of like spherical robot floating around Earth, and I was like, oh my God, Hyperion's happening. But you're right, he just changed sci-fi into reality. If anyone does, it's Musk.
I don't think we can go anywhere from there, but I think that's a great way to end the episode. It's a great vision to have robots in space, orbiting the Earth, controlling our lives, the little ants that we are. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Jason. And thank you, Jen. And thank you, listeners. This has been episode 112 of Disconnected, and we'll see you on the next one.